All right, good morning. I'm Dr. Neesa with Creative Feminine Rising, where we fuel the rise of the divine feminine through our creativity. I have a beautiful guest here with me today, Laurie Morse. Laurie and I met each other, probably 7 years ago now, something like that, while we were going through a creativity training together. The Color of Women with Shiloh Sophia. And I know that that experience really changed my life. So I'd love to hear how that has been for you, Laurie. I know you to be such a prolific creatrix of so many things. You're on your third book right now. You've birthed, web platforms as a teacher and an inspiration for sacred health. And you're a painter, and I know that you paint, pretty consistently. So let's begin with this time in your life where you're a acupuncturist, and then somehow you started weaving in creativity, and how that has supported your your clients along the way and yourself.
Yeah, that's a perfect place to start. So Chinese medicine has been teaching me for 35 years about life force. So let's just put that off to the side and we'll weave it back in. When I went through menopause 20 years ago, I just assumed it would be an easy thing because I was treating women in menopause and I'm healthy and all that stuff. So I thought, oh yeah, piece of cake, but it wasn't. It was anything but. It was really, really a rough ride. And at the time, I was getting these catalogs for UCSD, the University of California, San Diego, for this art and creativity program. It was a 3-year program. And I kept thinking, oh, I'll do that when I retire. And then by the fourth catalog, and I would just drool over this catalog. By the fourth time, my something in me, spirit said, well, why would you wait? Just do it now. So I did. And then I realized that me just sitting down at a table and however simple I did any sort of creative activity, my energy would heal and I would move, stuck places. And I thought, oh gosh, there's a thing here. Creativity and healing are a perfect marriage. And so that's when I sought out what we shared together, which is the intentional creativity program, The Color of Women. And it just took it to another level. And I couldn't not use creative expression as a way for me. It became my lifeboat through menopause. And it still is because it's almost like we can do all the things, and we do. Most of us do. We eat well, we move, we meditate and do all those things. But here's the key that for myself I discovered, and now it's true for any woman, which is the creative life force is the divine. It is the sacred. And
Mm.
the altar, the altar upon which we do any creative process is sacred. And it helps us to alter alter energy that is looking to be healed, right? And the other thing is that I think one of the biggest mistakes women make in the second half of life, anyone over 40 is considered a menopausal woman, right? It doesn't even matter if we use that word. It's the second half of life. And we're missing the deeper meaning of menopause or of this second half of life, that it's a call of the soul. It's a transition to wholeness, from a fertile woman to a no longer fertile woman, but in a different way, we rebirth ourselves. It's a sacred path. It's a time when we alchemize energy that's no longer serving into energy that serves us as we are rebirthing ourselves. And it is the time where we awaken the divine feminine inside and we get to become whoever we decide to become. And that kind of like excavation of ourselves, because there's deep wells of wisdom in every cell of our being, and they're blueprints for wholeness. And it's our job actually to cultivate and awaken that and then bring it out. And creativity, in my experience, is one of the best ways to do. I don't know a better way to do it. Let me put it that way.
So beautiful. I mean, you said that the creative life force is the divine. And
Exactly.
that is so beautiful. And I so understand that place as a woman on a very similar path to your own, and witnessing so many students and clients over the years, when I would bring the creative element into it, it is a place that gives us direct access. To me, it's not that much different than sitting on my meditation pillow. It is different, but the access is it's a similar place. It's a place where we plug into the mystery, right? That which is larger than us.
Exactly. And then we get to draw it through us, which we're supposed to be doing anyway. We just don't get taught that. And, the outcome, I don't even know if outcome is the right word, but the experience, the end result of people who do creativity and meditation are not that dissimilar, right? Like it lowers stress, it lowers cortisol, it assists better sleep, it helps us move through our emotions. And there's a long list of that. And so I thought to myself, even though I do meditate, I thought, but it's more fun to to do creativity. So I would
Like,
much rather color and learn how to make flowers on a sacred altar and have an intention when I go in to do that, so that I can come out of that experience with insights and transformation. Like that just seems more fun to me.
it is fun. It's incredibly fun. And it's so much fun to see what shows up on your canvas. And
Exactly.
let's just go back to the intentional creativity process as an example. And that's a place where you and I meet, is a place where we were really taught to tune into deeper awareness in ourselves
Yeah.
and let that express itself onto a canvas. It's a very different approach to art versus like, oh, that's a beautiful plant right there, and I want to practice what it is to render that, which is also incredible, right? It's an incredible experience. But
Right.
let's just talk about IC for a moment, intentional creativity, and like, how have you woven that into your professional life? Those principles.
As an artist or as a Chinese medicine practitioner?
I'm meaning really as a professional, as a professional, a practitioner, one who inspires and guides and supports others on their journeys.
Yeah, so like high level umbrella under which there are a lot of pieces that we can unpack however much you want. But I think that the practice of being present is imperative. That's important for any path. And then the decision that everything we do has a creative element to it, because we're using our creative life force. It's coursing through our veins right now. It's beating our heart. It's digesting our food. It's giving us words to speak. It helps us have good conversations with our teenagers, with our office mates, with setting a table, with planting everything is creative by nature, because every particle and wave of the universe is creative, right? And then we can talk about yin and yang, or the masculine and the feminine, and we can say, well, every particle of the universe is light, which carries love. They cannot be separated. So if we're going to acknowledge that, then why wouldn't we want to be intentional? Because intention informs this field of light and love, and we're supposed to be dancing with it with everything we do. So then that means everything we do gets to be a creative act. And setting an intention, so intentional creativity was a really beautiful like springboard for me to realize, and you, I imagine too, that, oh, we just carry that intention with us everywhere we go. So I don't make a piece of art without an intention. I don't step into a treatment room without an intention. I don't write a word in any book I'm writing without an intent. Like that is now so part of everything, woven into everything I do. And the outcomes I get reflect that. So I know it works. I think there's plenty of research on that it works, right? So why wouldn't we elevate ourselves into that level of intentionality in order to not only heal ourselves or elevate ourselves into new ways of being, or connect ourselves into the divine feminine, or lift ourselves into, I mean, we're supposed to be doing that. Like, I know I've said that a few times, but it's just like, I don't understand why people don't recognize that this is our job as a human being. Like we're human, we have our humanity and we have our divinity, and we're closing that gap. We're walking those two aspects of ourselves together, and creativity is the bridge.
Yeah, really beautiful. Creativity is the bridge. So what about people, what do you say to people who make comments like, I don't know how, I'm not creative, like I'm not an artist. Like I can't tell you how many times I've heard that statement from
Yes.
people.
Well, here's what I know about that. And I mean, no, it's not a belief. I know it in my cells. There's a small percentage of people who come out of the womb and they're master creative, artists, sculptors. They paint things for the walls of the Smithsonian. But every single human being is creative because of the creative life force that is keeping us alive right now. When I was in my 20s, I painted a teapot and it was horrible. So I threw it on the shelf of the closet and I never looked at it. And I claimed myself not a creative person. But then that catalog that kept calling me, I realized, oh, actually that's not true. And Julia Cameron's work on The Artist's Way also speaks to this. And I did that in my 30s, where she says, no, you have to create a relationship with your creativity and cultivate it and draw it out of you. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is the experience of energetic shifting that we feel when we're doing a creative experience. And so this is why I call, creating like date night, right? Like why wouldn't we have date days, nights, afternoons, whatever, with our creative life force like we do with our significant others, to cultivate closeness and communion and sacred connection. Like that's what date night is supposedly. Okay, for some people it's foreplay for sex, but whatever. you know we're like, we have to engage and practice and take maybe a drawing class and realize, okay, this is how everyone starts. They put themselves in a learning experience and then they get better over time. And in that space of time where we're getting better, we're also changing our energy. We're bringing intention, and then we can heal things.
All
So
right. So
so do not.
that's the gate that I want to
Yeah.
go right now is, if I'm not making art, maybe I'm just spending my day, scrolling on Instagram and then I have a job and then I make dinner and yada, yada, yada. Like, how is it that if I say, okay, Laurie, I'm going to take an art class, like, how is that going to help me? How's that
Yeah,
going
well, I
to
mean,
shift
it's
my
one,
reality?
it could be a gardening class. It could be, the key is that you're connecting. Like, okay, so I have a whole, maybe this is important to put out there, is I have a whole, I wouldn't say ritual as in long and drawn out. It's just a space that I put myself in before I do anything, where I'm bringing intentionality to it. So whether it's making a dinner or planting flowers or doing a work of art, is I take my heart space, I connect it by light to my higher presence, and I draw her in, and I ask her to fill me and play with me, play through me, right? So that we would do on anything, whether we're going to take an art class or go meet a friend for tea or have a walk in nature, like, it's an internal connection and a universal connection, right? So we're always sort of weaving between that, whether we're taking an art class or not. Does that answer the question you had? The gate that you
Um,
were, oh,
no, not entirely. I mean, yes, I get that every act can be intentional. I spent most of my life being an avid outdoors person, really going on hikes and getting connected and having all this beautiful experience that way. However, something changed when I picked up a paintbrush.
yeah,
The act of making art, like
yeah.
how does that influence and support your life experience?
Yeah, okay. Okay, so a paintbrush or a pen, any sort
Or
of,
sculpting or whatever your art form
yeah,
is, but art. We're talking
yeah.
about art here.
Well, we have to be very present with that experience. So that being present is a huge thing in and of itself. And then we're moving energy. Ideally, again, that's why I was mentioning that setup, where I imagine this waterfall coming from my higher self, flowing through me, filling up my heart, just like a fountain in a park, right? So water is overflowing, overflowing, and it's spilling into all my cells, but it's also moving down my arm and through my hand. And in the case of painting, the implement that is the paintbrush. And I can weave intention into that. I can weave compassion or, a clarity about a piece that I need to know about myself or how to heal something with myself. And what ends up on the page is less irrelevant than what is moving through me with that page as a receptacle of my energy, moving through a paintbrush or moving through a pen, or moving through the hands if it's about sculpting or something like that. When one goes to an art class, whether it's virtual or in person, they have to sit there and pay attention to whatever the assignment is. And that alone, or if we're sitting at home and we're doing a creative process and we're sitting there with ourselves and the things we're going to work with, that alone brings our energy to a focal point. And we don't get that on social media. That is a distracting, that's the opposite of that, right? And we need more of that in life. So sitting down and focusing our energy, and as we keep saying, being intentional is kind of a big deal. I can tell you that I have learned things through a creative process that I wouldn't have been able to even tease out in therapy. For example, I would put a mark down and then, you know, make more marks and then realize I don't like it. I hate it. And then I'd be like, oh, wow, that's kind of harsh, and I realized I could teach myself how to be softer in my mind with myself just by moving through making marks and picking colors and putting things through my paintbrush or pen on a piece of paper that I wouldn't get in therapy. I learned, I made a piece once with the intention of trying to figure out how to do the business thing and, why I was working so hard and there wasn't this return on my investment of that hard work. So I did this whole, creative process with the intention and all the things that we've been talking about. And it doesn't even matter what comes out. But then I step back and I always take a cup of tea and I just go, okay, what would you have me know? And what drops in, and this is because we're connected to our creative life force, and that's a universal field of intelligence and wisdom. What I heard was, you are the bounty. And I was trying to figure out how to make everything outside of me work. But it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with my inner relationship with enough, more than enough, plenty, bounty, thriving, all of that stuff. So I have spent the last 10 years of my life, because it was about 10 years ago that I did that particular piece, cultivating that fullness. We don't
Hmm.
have therapy. We have no offense to therapy. My husband's a psychologist, but I mean, I'm just saying the nuances of creating are so much more magical and dimensionally alive than just having a conversation with a therapist or even journaling. I have nothing against either one of those. I do them all, but it's different in the creative process. And if you can find a teacher like Neesa to walk you through those kinds of things, it will be magic.
Hmm. I love that term you just used, dimensionally alive, because that is so it. Like we are talking to each other right now, and that's enlivening. We're having a cool conversation.
Right?
But there is something else that happens when we are, dimensional with, a paintbrush. We're taking a hike. We're, exercising. We're making music, this form of, bringing all these, I will say 3D, but really we're bringing in more than 3D when we're doing these things. But to make it physical is really
Uh-huh.
powerful. It's enlivening, it's exciting, it's awakening. It activates awareness on a whole new level. And then
Yeah,
we get to see what we create, which is really fun.
exactly.
Unless you hate it, which takes you down another rabbit hole, right?
And that can be changed. This is another thing I've learned. If we do not like what's in front of us, change it. And we're supposed to do that, like with our thoughts and with our life courses and all that anyway. And art teaches, the expression of art imitates life, I now know to be exquisitely true. And there was something you just said a minute ago about, oh, bringing it into the physical. Like we are that instrument. People rail against the world happenings and want things to change by way of governments or whatever. It is not going to change unless there is enough of us being the instrument through which creative life force moves through us and adjusts the energy so that it is aligned with the higher principles of life. And that can only happen through us. It can't come to us from outside scenarios. And
Yeah.
art, one of the best ways to practice that and build the muscle for it and hone the skill of it so that we can walk out into the world and do it in other circles and communities that we're part of. Art teaches us how to do that.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
You want to be an activist, become an artist. Let art teach you, let your creative life force teach you, and then put yourself where you're attracted to be in an activist way.
Right. And of course, there's so many different ways that that can be expressed, right? Which could be like literally holding a sign or, signing petitions or organizing people, but it can also be a spiritual seat like you hold. You write books, you speak to people, you hold a place of I'm changing the world from my seat here and the way
Like
that I
you.
convey the life force and communicate and support others in doing so.
And everybody may not want to do it that way. I mean, just holding the seat in your family, if that's what's important for any listener, in your family or any wider circle of friends, you holding your seat is vital, because it impacts the butterfly. It impacts every other aspect of life because of the way we're connected by way of the fabric, the weave of life, right? Through that light and love thing. And making that seat more impactful, more wisdom filled, gets to happen when we cultivate ourselves through creativity.
So beautiful. Yeah. So let's talk for a moment about the rise of the divine feminine.
Okay.
So how do you link the creative process, the internal creative process, with shifting the consciousness out in the world? And of course, it's starting on the inside, right? But the relationship between creativity and the feminine principles.
Yeah. Well, I somewhere in this whole creative journey of mine, I realized I didn't know the feminine face of life. You know, we only, especially in the West, we only really have been exposed to the masculine face of life by way of religion and patriarchal dominance, and that's been going on for centuries. So I said to life, I said, I need to know I need to feel you, I need to know you, I need to understand, I need a relationship with you, right? And she came, she comes every time I call her. And I now know her to be the divine feminine. And sometimes I refer to her as divine love. Sometimes I refer to her as divine mother. But I call her and I call her constantly, and she's right there. And the dates that I have with her are the most transformational and intimate when I'm doing a creative process, because she's in me, she's sitting right next to me, she's coming through my hand. And that won't happen, and that didn't happen in the first few times I did it, but I just kept connecting into that. And you mentioned this earlier, through the physical. So we are matter, matter. That's what this earth life is about, matter. It's matter and non-matter. It's a dance between that, but we seem to put all of our focus on the matter. And we are made of matter. Our instrument is an instrument of matter. Well, mater, mater, is the Latin root word for matter, and mater is mother. So it is our purpose in life, especially now, you know, where the collective consciousness in, where there is no stopping the divine feminine from being in her matter in every particle and wave of life. And it is just so much more delicious and interesting and joy filled to be in a conscious relationship with the awakening of that feminine in oneself, and then letting her be the wisdom and the guidance to say, go here, say this, keep your mouth shut here, you know. And I get that muscle built in my creative experience, in my creative process. And then I go out and I practice and I realize, oh, the roof didn't cave. That was okay. That went okay, you know. And the balls don't drop. You know, like the softness of the divine would make the mind that is so steeped in the masculine, in the lower masculine expression, the softness of the divine freaks that part of our mind out. So we have to go slow with it and play with it and teach the mind that it's actually okay, and provide that part of our mind evidence that the balls won't drop. And I know I sound like a broken record, but when I'm in a creative process, that dance, that scared part of my lower human mind, my ego mind, and the divine feminine find a way of being peaceful with each other. And then I can take it out into the world. And this is our job. And I don't know another place to figure out how to have, you know, a peaceful coexistence with a scared mind and the divine part of ourselves than through creativity.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. So, in the big picture, why is the divine feminine taking over the planet right now? Why is this wave happening and why does it matter so much?
Yeah, well, I don't see it as a taking over. I see it as her arriving in her rightful counterbalance to the divine masculine. And I know that's what you mean, but I'm just going to say it in those words. Because we were always meant to have a co-creative partnership, an equal. And this is why things like division and equity are coming up, right? Because we've not had it for a very, very long time. You know, and I've had to make peace with, well, why the F has it been this way for so long? You know, like why did it have to be so out of balance? Why did the divine feminine have to be pressed down for so long without proper expression? And we all know those stories. I mean, you know, we've lived it. We have it in our DNA. This is another reason why it's so important to do this work right now, is that the experience of being pressed down that lives in our lineage and our ancestral chains, you know, or lines, are aching to be healed. And we have to do it now because of this counterbalance. We will not, I mean, you're asking a question of like, why is it so important? Well, because we want a counterbalance to war. We don't want war anymore. We want peace. Well, how are we going to get that? With equal balance between high expression masculine and high expression divine feminine. The divine feminine is going to teach all that masculine lower expression how to be in balance, how to elevate itself. These two energies cannot be separated. And that's why we've had all these problems that we've had, because the lower human masculine ego analytical mind has tried to keep that down for too long. It won't happen anymore. And this is what you mean by, you know, she's coming in hot. You know, she's coming in strong, hot, and she will not be turned away. And women like us who are doing this work, we know that because we know it, how it is activated in our own cells. There's no turning back from that. And so in order to bring the world to her proper, and the earth, right? Like Mother Earth is part of this, to bring us all into our proper throne in the galaxy, we each have to do this work breath by breath, day after day, until the scales tip. And I choose to believe it's going to happen in our lifetime. Whether I'm right about that, I don't know, but I think it might. So I'm not going to leave my post. I'm not going to shirk my responsibilities. I'm going to do my work. And so what better way to do it than through color and creative experience? because it rises that energy and it puts it in the pool of consciousness. And then other women, this is another motivation for me, women who are like say in the Middle East, they don't get to have these kinds of conversations. So when I think about not doing what you and I are talking about, it would feel like I'm letting those women down because they don't have a voice. So I'm going to do my work, and that is going to ripple through the pool of consciousness, and it's going to change that balance everywhere on the planet, not just in the West, where we get to have these conversations, at least so far.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah. So we'll be wrapping here soon. I just wanted to give you an opportunity, Laurie, to speak to, what's hot and exciting for you right now. I know you have a new book coming out. You may want to speak to that, or that and
Yeah.
something else. Like what's exciting in your creative world right now?
Well, everything related to creativity is always exciting for me, and I just it will always be that way. So because I can't not do it. But yeah, so I have a new book. It'll be out later this month, and I don't know if you're going to post any show notes or links or anything with
Yeah,
this.
yeah, I totally will.
So what I can do is I can give your listeners like an advanced reading to the book. There's only been a few eyes on it so far. So for women who are interested in learning more about their bodies in the second half of life, it's called Moving Through Menopause with Grace. And it just goes through practically, like this is the way it rolls, and these are the options you have, and this is what you could talk to your doctor about, and this is how to manage your energy so you're not sinking so much. And there's a fair amount in there woven about creativity and just how to like use it, in ways that support, that become a lifeboat for you too, because that's how I experience it. Um, and there's a little bit of Chinese medicine and 5 elements in there. It's kind of it's very what's the word I'm looking for? It's very complex, but simply written, so you can, it's very easy to tease out what's important for you.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
this is a whole different approach. It's not, that I go to my medical doctor and they'd say, well, you need to exercise more, and maybe you need to take some progesterone, and,
Well, it
some this,
includes that. It includes some of that core practical stuff too, because there's a lot of women who don't even know like where to start with that. But there's more layers. It's a dimensional book. Let's call it that.
Mm.
Let's put
I would
yeah,
expect that from you. Yes. Really recognizing the many dimensions of the woman
many.
and
Yeah,
who she
yeah,
is and how she
yeah.
expresses. Yeah.
I think one of the key things to take away is that we have to become better, make a decision to get better at managing your life force. And if creativity is one of the ways that helps you do that, then dive in. If there's other ways, do it, but we have to figure out our recipe for managing our life force, especially in the second half of life, because we don't have extra energy to burn. We have to be fueled a different way. And there are different ways to get fueled, and be impactful in your life, however small or wide you want your circle to be of impact. But we have to start with how to manage our energy.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Right.
Yeah. So
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Always fun to talk to you. I
I,
miss our regular
I
conversations.
know. Well, we can set that up again. Yeah, I
Yeah.
miss it too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, best of luck on your launch. It's super exciting.
Thank you.
And
And you keep up your good work too, because your work is just magical.
thank you. All right. Big blessings out there. Take care, everyone. Turning on your life force.
Yeah.